Hey, e-commerce marketing podcast listener. I wanted to let you know that we have created a 6-month guide to marketing your e-commerce store. You can download this guide by visiting getosi.com/guide or by texting GetOSI to 33444. This guide will show you how to get more traffic, sales, and conversions for your online store. Get the guide right now by visiting getosi.com/guide or by texting GetOSI to 33444. Welcome back, everyone, to the e-commerce marketing podcast. I am your host, Arlen Robinson, and today we have a very special guest, Chloe Thomas. Chloe Thomas is an e-commerce expert focused on e-commerce strategy and marketing to help e-commerce people make better decisions as they build their path to success. She's the author of several books, keynote speaker, and advisor, and host of the e-commerce master plan podcast. Her latest book is an Amazon.com bestseller entitled Customer Persuasion: How to Influence Your Customers to Buy More and Why an Ethical Approach Will Always Win. Welcome to the podcast, Chloe. How's it going?
Oh, hey, Arlen. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Yes, not a problem. Well, you have a pretty exciting background. I took a little look at you. You seem to be kind of making a name for yourself over there in the UK. And, what I always like to do is find out a little bit about how my guests have gotten started. So really, how did you really get started in the industry, and how did you become an expert in e-commerce?
I'll give you kind of like the semi-long version, because there's some entertaining points, or I hope entertaining points in it anyway. Sure. I started, when I left uni, I got a job at Barclays Bank in their marketing department. And after about 18 months, realized I didn't want to work in banking. Mm-hmm. So applied to every marketing job going, trying to leave the bank. And the first company I got the yes from was a UK high street retailer who ran a mail order catalogue and also an online website back in 2004, 2005, this would have been. Mm-hmm. So quite early days. And I went there to look after their catalogue marketing and got the e-commerce bug whilst I was there, and slowly got myself involved in ever more amounts of the e-commerce side of things. Then after 2 Christmases there, I moved on to work for a business who was running the mail order side of a number of different mail order businesses, about 6, 7, 8 different retailers. And there I was their head of e-commerce. So I got to be the kid in the candy shop. It was back when, they all kind of had a vaguely pasted together website where a catalogue would mail, and maybe 2 weeks after the catalogue mailed, the right products would be on the website, but a couple of them would have been missed off because they hadn't got a photo or something. It was back in those days.
I remember those days.
Yeah, but it was very cool building the first websites for all of them. And it was like going into a client and going, "Have you ever sent an email?" Wow. "Yeah, I send emails all the time." No, to your customers. "Have you ever sent an email to your customers?" They'd be like, "No." "How many email addresses have you got?" "Oh, let me have a look." "Oh, we've got 60,000. Is that good?" Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty good. So I got to really play around for a few years there, and then turned that into a kind of consultancy marketing agency that I sold beginning of last year. And then 5 years ago, I started e-commerce master plan, where I write books, speak at events, advise customers, just really do all I can to help e-commerce business owners become more successful, primarily on trying to find the traffic side of things. But of course, you can't improve the traffic and the sales without touching on the website and often the branding and the whole 9 yards, really.
Sure, you're most definitely. Well, yeah, that sounds awesome. And actually, for my U.S. listeners that aren't familiar with the terminology uni, I'm familiar with your schooling system a little bit because I watch a lot of British TV shows, so I'm familiar with what uni is. Why don't you explain what uni is for all my U.S.-based listeners?
So, oh gosh, I don't know if I can turn it into American terms, but basically I was actually at Oxford University where I studied history. Okay. So that's where I was from the ages of 18 to 22. Right. So where we get our degrees. So I guess, would it be the equivalent of being at Harvard or Princeton or something?
Yeah, so it would be a university. I know it's after what your guys' equivalent of our high school is. Of course, you would go to university. But I thought there was another level prior to that you guys go to in your educational system?
We do like college, where we're like at college from 16 to 18, where we take A levels.
Gotcha.
And then we go degrees after that, and then you can go post grad after that.
Gotcha. So that's what it is. So it's the 16 to 18 period where you're taking pretty much college level courses, and then after that you can go on to uni. That's the next level. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have to admit, I watch an awful lot of American TV, and I still, when they say grades, I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But like 37 years into watching American TV, and I still haven't bothered to look it up. It's weird, isn't it? The things we just let pass us by.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I've just picked up that school system just because, like I said, I've watched a lot of British shows on Netflix, and these days there's a ton of content, so it makes all of us so global. But yeah, thanks for breaking that down. We're gonna be kind of focused on really your background with e-commerce, B2B e-commerce, specifically business to business. I know I do have a large audience base of businesses that sell to other businesses. You're an expert in that arena. So what I want to first find out is, what must a business typically do differently to attract other businesses to their websites as opposed to, attracting consumers? Is there a big difference, and what are some of the things that you've noticed that you've guided your customers to do?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I've been involved with B2B e-commerce pretty much from probably for the last 10 years, I would say, as a rough guess. Like helping people take their wholesale business online, and then once they've got it online, helping them grow the sales. And it's actually, I know a lot of people think, and apologies to your listeners, this is not what I think, but a lot of people think B2B e-commerce is the dull side of e-commerce.
Right.
I actually think at times, and B2C customers, I'm sorry about this, I actually think sometimes it's more fascinating than B2C, because the types of customer are so much more diverse. You have, when you're a B2B e-commerce business, sometimes, depending on what products you're selling and who your target is, your customers behave like normal consumers. Mm-hmm. Like the one man consultancy who needs to buy some paper for his printer behaves just like the average man on the street when he wants to buy paper for his printer. He nips down to Staples, right, or he goes online and orders it from Amazon, basically.
Right.
And for the the stationery business who's trying to service him, actually they're servicing him like he would be a consumer. But then you go right the way through to the B2B businesses who are, there's a case, I have another book called B2B e-commerce master plan, and there's a case study in there from a business who sell industrial parts. They're called industrial ancillaries, and they sell to people who are keeping factories running. Okay. Now, that customer buys in a completely different way to the consumer.
Right.
They only want you when they've got a massive problem, and they want that part, and they're going to buy on a part number, and they're just completely different. You're the only person they're going to come to. So when it comes to what do you do to attract the customers to your website and to get them to buy, I think for some B2B e-commerce businesses, it's very similar to all the consumer marketing that's out there. Mm-hmm. It's about being on Google. It's about being on the right social networks. It's about building the relationship as you would with any consumer. But for some, it's completely different. So I think to find the right marketing, you have to start by understanding your customer.
Right. That's very important. I had on a previous episode of the podcast, I talked to another gentleman where we talked about defining the customer's persona, and that's very key. And I think, like you said, regardless of whether you're selling to other businesses or to, just consumers, that's really one of the things that you want to do early on in the business, if not, at the inception of the business, because, you've got to figure out who it is you're selling to, who is that ideal customer, and then, your marketing efforts can be channeled behind that and pointed in the direction of where those particular types of people. So yeah, that's very important.
But the very cool thing for the B2B e-commerce operator is that usually you've got a much closer relationship with your customers than the B2C e-commerce business has, because until you go e-commerce, you've been you've been going to their office to speak to them to get the order, or they've been phoning you on a regular basis, every week or every day to place those orders. Right. So you actually already know, you've seen the whites of their eyes, you know a lot more about that avatar, about that persona than the B2C, which can make it a lot more straightforward to work out how to get the marketing right to go to them. Because what I find with the more kind of traditional, in inverted commas, B2B businesses, the wholesalers, the manufacturers, is that when they move online, they kind of have a two-pronged marketing challenge, or getting people to the website challenge. One is the opportunity of getting new customers to find you and start buying from you. But kind of the bigger one is, how do you get your existing customer base to start using that website?
Right.
If they're used to picking up the phone and placing their order with Tracy every Friday, and now you want them to go on the website and do it themselves, it's a big leap for that customer. So there's a lot you have to do on the adoption front to get the customers adopting the new method, other than just simply churning through new customer acquisition. Yes,
yeah, you're definitely so right about that. In Entail, the relationship is, like you said, it's different, but it actually really is a lot stronger of a relationship, because you're dealing with another business on the other end that's making and then depending on what it is you're selling, making a purchasing decision for that particular business. And there's a lot of, depending on the type of business it is and what it is you're purchasing, there's a lot that kind of goes behind that. It's not like you're just coming there doing a one-off purchase and then, kind of a high and buy, especially if it's a business that you're going to be continually purchasing from. Is something that where, the relationships can definitely go deeper. And one of the things that you did mention really kind of brings me to my next question, when you're kind of defining the differences between, a B2B business versus B2C. A B2B business is getting their site set up and trying to figure out the best way to provide their product or services. What should be different with regards to the checkout process or the purchase order process? And I know it's kind of a general question and it can vary based on the business, but are there some key things that a business needs to consider when they're thinking about that whole purchase or checkout process?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, the first thing to bear in mind whenever you're working on a checkout process is you've got to make it as frictionless as possible. So as easy for the customer to kind of place that order and go, oh my God, I've already placed the order. That's brilliant, because there was so little friction as they go through it. And the thing about B2B, the business customer, is that they have different friction points. If you think about how they're placing that order, it's a very different scenario to what you would get on a standard B2C e-commerce site. So you want to make sure you've got things like, in the checkout itself, the option to pay by invoice. Most business customers want to get an invoice at the end of each month. They don't want to have to put their credit card details in each time they check out. So there has to be that invoice. And if you're going to go for the invoice thing, then it's also got to be integrated with your payment system and your CRM and your account management software, so that you can match that up with what their credit limit is.
Right. Yeah.
So that whole mechanic has to be in there, together with, and you mentioned it earlier, you might have different people with different roles and responsibilities in the business. So it might be you want the people in the branches, across the country, each store manager to be able to place their order, but centrally that's got to be signed off by the purchasing manager at head office. So it's possible to get your e-commerce site to manage that entire process. So it's really easy for your customer as a whole, from the branch manager through to the head office team and the accounts team, to manage their relationship with you via that platform, which saves you so much time in manpower. So your team can then get on with selling and chatting and upselling, rather than, doing the minutiae of everything. So the whole kind of invoice, credit limit, purchase order sign-off side of things has to be in that checkout, and has to be done in a way that works if that's how your customers buy from you. The other kind of changes in terms of getting the purchase kind of happen just before the checkout. So a B2B, a business customer, will frequently buy the same product again and again and again.
Right.
you might have thousands, tens of thousands of different products, but each customer will probably have the same 10 or 20 they buy each time.
Gotcha.
So to create like a personalized bestsellers list, so not the bestsellers of what everybody on your platform buys, but what that particular customer buys. Here's what you buy the most. So they can do a very quick order, or they can go back and see previous orders. And so those are the very key functionality for most B2B e-commerce sites. And then the other one is what we used to call back in the mail order days, gosh, going back a few years now, is like the quick catalog lookup. So they can just enter those SKUs, those codes, those item codes from your catalogs, because we all know that a really good B2B customer will know the codes of the products they frequently order. So if that's how they want to order, just putting those codes in, putting in the quantities, and bang, there's the order. Then you need that on the website as well. So there's lots of different ways you can go to make it easy for them and to remove that friction.
Yeah, that's definitely so true. And one of the things I thought about when you were mentioning providing, like an order history, stuff like that, for these types for a B2B e-commerce solution, you almost need to provide, in a way, it depends on the customer, but you almost need to provide some forward-facing analytics to that customer, because like you said, your site is getting all this data of what that particular business is ordering from month to month or however often. And so they're busy running their business, and it really, in order to kind of improve your whole sales cycle, if you're able to provide them with as much analytics about, okay, maybe at the end of the year, you can provide them with some analytics like, all right, it seems like during the months of January and February, there was a spike in your ordering of this product. I mean, the businesses that are ordering, they probably already know this, or they may already know this, but maybe they don't. But it would be a good reminder, so that you would kind of stand out in that type of situation, because they're seeing that you're taking the time to look at what they're ordering, and then kind of help give them some suggestions as to how to best make adjustments on what it is they're ordering, the times that they may need to order, and get products fulfilled.
Completely. If you can go back to them and go, actually, if you based on your ordering history, we can see that if you bought this in a larger pack size, you would be saving X dollars per month, and the product wouldn't be going off, so it's going to be, this would be in your interest. And interestingly, once you start getting into that kind of data, you can then start creating some really quite cool, if you're like me, this is really cool, so really cool marketing automations where you're seeing this person hasn't ordered, or this one of your branches hasn't ordered, or they've ordered, flagging up the alerts to the person who's signing off the purchase orders of, this is a really odd order from these guys. I think they might have screwed up.
Yeah.
They may have hit the 10 instead of the 1 or something.
Definitely.
So there's loads of levels once you've got all the data centrally that you can really improve things for the customer.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of providing all of these things in the whole purchasing experience, what, in your experience, or in your opinion, what are some e-commerce shopping cart solutions or e-commerce solutions that are better for B2B? And is there any that you could recommend?
Well, yeah, it's I always say that you should look at what your requirements are and then find the person who can match that. I'll preface that with that little warning.
Right.
So I don't want to go, oh, Chloe said I had to go with this. I'm not saying you have to go with any of these. I'm saying they're a good starting point.
Sure.
So what's been really interesting is over the last couple of years, the options for the B2B business have really improved. So you now have pretty good solutions that can be built and adapted on the Magento platform. Also, Shopify Plus can do an awful lot of the B2B pieces, which is great news because it makes life a lot easier. There are also a lot of brilliant, specifically B2B agencies, because it's not just about the right software, it's also about finding a team who are familiar with the challenges of B2B. If you speak to most people who only ever build B2C websites, all that functionality we were just talking about, it wouldn't even occur to them to suggest it to you.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you're going down this route for the first time, which a lot of B2B businesses now are, then to find a partner to build that website an agency to build that website who've been there and done that is going to save you so much time. So in the UK, we've got an absolutely fantastic one called Aspidistra, who specialize in Sage integrations. So if you want all that clever account management, purchase order numbers, credit limits, and all that kind of stuff, and you're on the Sage platform, they are just like the obvious guys to go to because it's what they specialize in.
Okay.
I don't know of anyone in the US, so apologies to your listeners, but there are some phenomenal businesses out there. So it's kind of like you have to do a little bit of hunting to find the B2B guys, but they are awesome when you find them. Yeah,
definitely. And you mentioned Shopify Plus. I don't know too much about their Plus platform. I know Shopify, regular Shopify for B2C is great, but they've been leaders in the B2C space. So I would imagine their Shopify Plus platform really probably has all the bells and whistles and everything that you would need for B2B.
It's Plus is like. Well, it's like Shopify Plus. So it's still a B2C product, but it's now got the potential to be B2B.
Gotcha.
It's got the potential to do a lot more. So it's kind of, I would say, and I'm guessing here completely, I haven't spoken to anyone at Shopify about this, but my guess is it's like the enhanced package that they've built to make sure they can keep their existing Shopify customers with them as they get larger and larger and larger turnovers.
Right.
So it's just a little bit more nuts and bolts than is in the original Shopify.
Gotcha.
But it's a very, very nice platform.
Okay, great. One of the things that I always like to look at, and this I think can help the audience, is who are some of the large successful B2B e-commerce companies that are doing great things, and what can small businesses learn from what they've done? If there's like a couple of specific key things that you think about that you can maybe point to that some of the bigger guys are doing that some of the smaller guys can kind of glean and learn from.
Yeah, of course. These are going to be UK examples, but I think you guys, your listeners, can still get a fair amount from them.
Sure.
So in the UK, we have some amazing businesses in the B2B sector. The two I would kind of frame up as being proper full-on B2B e-commerce, as we like to think about it, would be Screwfix, who sell tools and screws and all those kind of like DIY items.
Okay.
And they sell both to consumers and to trade, because of course the average builder behaves quite like a consumer. So they marry so you can just go on their website and just place an order. You can create yourself a trade account with all the nuts and bolts that involves. They have trade counters that you can go to physically get the product. They have a catalog. So they combine all these complex channels, and they do it in such a brilliant way. And one of the things I just absolutely love about what they do is their constant focus on their customers' needs. So they, for the last 4 or 5 years now, if not possibly longer, they've had next day delivery for free if you place your order by 7 p.m. in the evening, and so long as you spend £20, which is about $40. And that is just kind of groundbreaking delivery service. But they know, and they've built it, and they've found ways of delivering this because they know that the majority of their customers are guys who've spent their day on the building site. They've got back home and gone, oh my God, for tomorrow I need this. And they need that delivered the next day, or they can't deliver for their customer.
Gotcha.
So I think it's that real focus on customer service. Another great one in the UK is Nisbets, Nisbets, who sell products for the catering industry. So chef's whites and knives and all the rest of it. And they, again, have a very, very strong focus on what their customer needs. And I think that's kind of what the big guys have really got, is they've built the systems and the processes and the options and the services that their customer desires. So what I would recommend to your listeners is, if they're in the B2B space and they want to improve their e-commerce, they want to go e-commerce, is to identify people who are serving a customer base with similar needs to themselves and look at what they're doing.
Yeah, definitely. That's, you kind of hit it right on the nail, because I always think that you can, there's somebody out there that is doing what you're doing, but maybe just at a larger scale. And so, a lot of times there's really no need to try to reinvent the wheel, and you can really learn a lot from just, like looking at another business in a similar space, but that may just be at a higher level. So that's some great advice.
And I mean, can I give you one more example?
Oh, sure.
Okay, so the really big one to watch at the moment is Amazon. Who have now launched Amazon Business. In the UK, they've been pushing it for the last maybe 3 or 4 months and slowly rolling out new functionality. And it's very interesting, I find, to see how they're doing that and how they've basically decided we're now in the world of B2B.
Right.
We now have, purchase order numbers and this and that and VAT, which has always been a problem if you're a business buying on Amazon to try and get the VAT, and the sales tax and all of that. So I think that they're one which I think it's, given how phenomenally good they are at e-commerce, they're one which if I was, any B2B business, I would be keeping an eye on what Amazon's doing, both in terms of as the threat to their own business, but also to see what I can pick up and learn and adapt from what they're doing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you definitely, I think all eyes are on Amazon for, a number of reasons. They're giants in the space. And so it's going to be interesting to see where that goes for sure. And so Chloe, one of the things I always like to wrap up with is getting some final advice. And what do you think is the one thing an e-commerce business can do right now to help their business grow, get traffic and get sales? And, it can be anything related to an e-commerce business.
Cool. I hope this doesn't sound like a cop-out, but my answer would be to focus on building the human connection with customers and prospective customers.
Okay.
By which I mean that it's quite easy in e-commerce to forget that your customers are humans, as bizarre as that sounds, because they're numbers on a sheet, a lot of the time. And what is fundamental about human beings is that we buy from people we like. And we buy from people we feel we have a connection with. And the more your business can make someone feel, the more likely they are to buy from you and the more they will buy from you. That's a quote, that's a kind of destroyed quote from Daniel Kahneman, who's a Nobel Prize winning neuroscientist. Okay, so he knows his stuff.
Right.
And so practical ways to go about doing this, because I know there are people listening going, okay, that's all well and good, Chloe, but what do we actually do? It's things like, on your About Us page, don't just have your address and your phone number. Tell people about why you created the business, why you chose the products that you've got. Have a picture of your team and the warehouse. Show them behind the curtain, and build it a bit that way. And then I think welcome campaigns. So when someone first buys from you or when they first sign up to your emails, to put some of that content out in your welcome campaign as well, I think is a hugely powerful way to do it. And if you can manage to find a way of putting it on your homepage, then so much the better. But that can often be a bit more challenging. So it's kind of revealing the humans and the thoughts of the humans behind the business to attract more humans to the business to get them to buy.
Yeah, that's definitely so true. A lot of businesses that are e-commerce forget that a lot of times, and they kind of remain behind the virtual wall, so to speak. And the human connection definitely can go a long way, because bottom line is people purchase from companies they like, or people they like, so if you're able to create a rapport and kind of open pull back the curtain a little bit and show what's going on, who the individuals are that are behind the company, that can definitely go a long way. So I appreciate that. That's actually a tip that I never actually had before, and I'm sure our listeners would appreciate it. Well, Chloe, I definitely appreciate talking to you today and all of the insightful advice that you've provided. Now, if my listeners want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Well, if they head over to ecommercemasterplan.com, nice and easy, hopefully to remember that one, they can find out all about me. You can find links there to all my books. There's 5 of them about e-commerce in total. Don't worry, I'm not going to read out the names of them. But based on the content we've been talking about today, probably B2B e-commerce master plan is very relevant. And then that human connection would be customer persuasion, which you kindly mentioned in the intro. But you can find out all details of all of those on the website, details of the podcast, and everything else I'm up to is at ecommercemasterplan.com.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again, Chloe. It was great talking to you, and you have a great rest of your day.
Oh, it's been marvelous talking to you too. Thank you, Arlen.
Sure. Thank you for listening to the e-commerce marketing podcast. To access e-commerce videos and other resources to help your business grow, please visit getosi.com/videos. Subscribe to us on iTunes by searching for e-commerce marketing podcast, and please leave a rating and a review. Thanks for listening. See you next time.